Hey girl, Marissa here. You are listening to the Codependummy podcast. As a young woman, you have been raised, reinforced, and rewarded for putting the needs of others above your own. That is, for being codependent. Now in your 20s, you're exhausted, exasperated, and enveloped in crap relationships, especially the one you have with yourself. This podcast is to help you undo all that so you can stop playing small and start taking up space, you dummy. Let's get to it. Hey, happy June, everyone. Popping in really quick. There's an announcement and a poem at the end. So stay all the way until the end. See you there. Hey girl, hey. It's me, Marissa Escobar, your hostess mostest with the Codependummy podcast. First, how are you, baby girl? How are you feeling? How's your week going? Are you getting your needs met? If not, why not? Let's just take a unified breath all together and know that you, me, and about 100 other listeners are all doing the same this week. Okay, here we go. Go us. Like Julia Roberts tells Richard Gere in Pretty Woman, if I forget to tell you later, I had a really great time tonight. I want to tell you, dear Codependummy listener, if I forget to tell you at the end, thank you for listening. So today is Codependency and Sacrificial Helping Syndrome, Part 3. And let's review my working definition of codependency. A way of being where one prioritizes fulfilling the needs of others in an unconscious attempt to fulfill their own needs. For example, I will have sex with you, dear sweet boyfriend of mine, because you want to. And if you need for sex, your need for sex needs to be fulfilled, maybe mine will be too, even though I'm not really in the mood, right? And even underneath that, I fear that if I don't fulfill your need, if I don't have sex with you, dear boyfriend, you will break up and abandon me. So yes, let's have sex. So your needs are met and my need to not be alone is met. Fingers crossed. Does that make sense? That's an example. And reminder, our codependency is often not conscious, right? We don't like if your boyfriend initiates, you don't think like, okay, I really don't want to right now, but I'm going to so he doesn't abandon me. And maybe if I have sex with him, my need for sex will be fulfilled too, even though I don't really want to have it. Like, this is not conscious. It's typically unconscious and likely due to our childhood, past trauma, culture, previous experiences, right? And we come to this way of being where in an attempt to get our needs met, we conclude the only way that we can do that is by meeting the needs of others unconsciously. Just, we're just not very conscious, we codependummies. Okay, so today I'm going to get real, honest, and real honest about why I was such a codependent dummy at work and sacrificed myself literally to the bone. Katie Vernoy, in her episode that aired May 24th, provided us with multiple questions to reflect on our self-sacrifice at work. I'm going to answer those to model to you all. This is how you use the podcast to promote growth and create change. I also hope that from my answers, you may resonate and it will help you get honest about your own self-sacrifice, sacrificial helping, codependency at work. I'm committing now at the beginning of the recording to be as honest with you as I can. So last week, I shared examples of my own sacrificial helping / codependency at work, where I put the needs of my clients, colleagues, and bosses before my own. I sacrificed my time, my body, and relationships. Give it a listen if you haven't already, and be sure to listen to Katie's episode too. Reflecting, I did want to add some context since I sense I made too many assumptions and left you, the listener, with a lot of figuring out to do, so I apologize for that. Back in 2016, here's the context. I was hired as an associate marriage and family therapist at a group home in Los Angeles County. A group home, for all you international listeners or people who don't know what that is a residence model of medical care for those with complex health needs. Traditionally, the model has been used for young, children, or people who cannot live with their families, right? So if you think back to the old days, what we referred to as an orphanage back in the 20s and 30s, that is what I would say that was the original group home. So it's a place where foster children and probation youth are removed and they live there. So I was hired as a therapist in training, not licensed, to meet with a caseload, an assigned group of therapy clients. I had 10 children between 5 and 18 years old in foster care or on probation, like they've committed a crime or gotten arrested, probation. And some of these children, they lived with foster families, other relatives, because Child Protective Services had decided it was unsafe for them to reside with their parents, or probation decided it was unsafe for them to remain in their communities, right? Just because you get arrested and you're 14 doesn't mean you end up in a group home. But if you get arrested because you're 14 and you've committed a couple crimes or is really dangerous, maybe it's better if the state oversees you for a certain amount of time. So these 10 clients, their families, foster parents, teachers, and other support staff required a lot of help. My position involved seeing each of those 10 children 1 to 2 times per week. Okay, so that's 10 to 20 hours. I was asked and it was encouraged to have a family session with each 1 time per week. So that's another 10 hours. I was encouraged to have one-on-one sessions with the parents, foster parents, or other relatives, caregivers, right? Sometimes we think a caregiver is someone who takes care of an old person. At my job, a caregiver was literally a person who gave care to the child. So depending how many caregivers, relatives, foster parents there were, that's another 10 hours. I was supposed to attend a team meeting with said client, caregivers, and other colleagues from my company. And I was supposed to have weekly calls with their social workers, attorneys, tutors, coaches, the like. Okay, so I think we're getting close to 40 or 50 hours just with that basic understanding. And reflecting on it, I like shook my head back and forth, like in disbelief. Marissa, how the fuck did you manage? And so much was being asked of an amateur therapist, right? I had the least amount of training, and I was working with children, families, and systems that arguably required the most proficiency in the field. Recall too that 95% of those meetings, I don't even know if I told you guys this. I was based in the community. So I actually went to their homes, their schools, their daycares, right? It wasn't typical therapy where they come to the office. I was going out. And my driving radius was probably around 50 miles, meaning on some days I drove 50 miles west and then 50 miles back to work and then 50 miles east. So 100 total. Then 50 miles back to the office all in one day. That's 200 miles, right? Jesus. That was crazy. Oh, and I also had to have supervision for 1 hour a week. And I had to attend a 2-hour group meeting one time per week with fellow therapists in training, and a team meeting with colleagues that were also working with these children, like a staff meeting. I think there were actually 2 staff meetings. Yeah, so, oh my God. Okay, I think with the hours driven, the template for how many sessions I was supposed to have a week, how many meetings I was supposed to have a week, I think we're nearing 60, 70 hours. And then I had to take copious notes and document everything since it was extremely important in order for the company to get paid. We had to show the receipts. Okay, so like easy 70 to 80 hours a week. And I did it. I did all that for 2.5 years, for 30 months. And I was one of the best, right? Little codependent dummy. I crossed my I's and dotted my T's, and because I wanted to please everybody to get that little pat on the head, little dopamine hit from being perfect. We logged our productivity, which just meant how many hours of our like 40-hour, in quotes, 40-hour work week we were meeting face-to-face with clients. And I often logged 100% when we really only needed 70%, right? So I was always getting an A+ in productivity when a C- would have been sufficient. But, not for a codependent dummy like me, who deep down, I believed I had to work twice as hard to be half as worthy. I shared last week, but just note that I took calls at midnight. I acted more like a bounty hunter trying to find a probation youth. One of my clients' kid, he was like on a run with a gun in this city, and I literally was just trying to find him along with the cops. I gave up numerous Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays with no overtime pay to accommodate all my clients' schedules. I was punched, had glass thrown at me, and even was accused of being inappropriate sexually with one of my clients by her little brother. It was bad. Okay. That is the context, which I sense I neglected to share with you last week. So my apologies, and I hope that really helps just tie this in a bow with Katie's episode, me talking about sacrificial helping and codependency at work, and today answering Katie's questions. All right. Now, questions and answers. Thanks to the lovely questions Miss Katie Vernoy provided us. Thank you, Katie. I encourage you, if you can, baby girl, write these out as you listen so you can answer them, reflect on them as well afterwards. And I will state the question and we'll go from there. So, excuse me. Number 1, why would I allow myself to get in that dynamic? During the episode with Katie, she recalled how she had to constantly try harder, be better, help more, do more in order to feel like she was good enough. She acknowledged part of it was looking at the toxic work environment. And the other part was understanding why she would allow herself to get in that dynamic. All right, so there's Katie's question, little background, and answer. I too acknowledge that I was working in a toxic work environment. And for everyone, a toxic work environment, it varies in industries and fields. But overall, toxic work environment is an environment that negatively impacts the viability of an organization. And it's an organization that is ineffective as well as destructive to its employees. Ooh, right? And I'm like, ineffective. Well, I did protest and complain about certain aspects of the job, but those often went unheard by higher ups. Destructive. Yes. Well, I guess, the fact that I'm logging over 40 hours a week in productivity, which probably meant I was working 70 or 80 hours, that should have been a red flag. But my company actually benefited from that. And they made thousands, and it reflected well with my direct supervisor, my unit, the mental health department, and the group home. My back was literally breaking, and so it was destructive, and I was cheered, encouraged, and enabled to keep going the entire time. Katie also talked about in her episode gaslighting. So at times I sense I would complain, and then I would be met with, like I remember one time there was a huge oversight for the safety of one of my clients, and I told my supervisor, I was like, this staff member completely overlooked that. And she was like, where did you overlook things? And I was like, what? And then I felt really bad, and I questioned, and I blamed myself. Like I really should have been paying more attention. So toxic, okay? Check. But now the real question, why would I allow myself to get in, and I would argue we can add stay in, that dynamic? And I came up with 5 reasons, okay? I stayed in that dynamic because, 1, I believed that was what I deserved. 2, I believed that by bending myself backwards as a good employee, it would make me a good person, right? Good as a being. Number 3, I got to relinquish control of my life. Number 4, I received pity. I received your pity. Not you, but I'll walk through this. 5, I loved to be needed. I loved it. I loved it. And 6, it gave me something to talk about. So let me go more in depth with each of those and see what resonates for you. Also, I can hear my husband in the background. So if you guys can hear my husband in the background, his voice, man, it just carries. It really does. I've put up some barriers. I have attempted to soundproof. If you can hear him, let's just acknowledge how great it is that he's in the background. Okay, and I apologize, and I hope it's not too distracting. So why would I allow myself to get in this dynamic, right? First, I believe that this is what I deserved. Between June 2016 till March of 2019, while I worked at this company, I was, as a codependent, I fit the bill for one of our common symptoms in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. It states that people with dependent personalities constantly refer to themselves as stupid, worthless, and incompetent. Deep down, I believed I was a shitty therapist. And beneath that, I believed I was a shitty person. At my core, I believed I deserved the pain, the demands, the driving, the treatment that I received. Right? Plain and simple. Like, who am I, Marissa Selena Escobar, to ask for more than this? Right? Really, really, like, deep down, this shadow part of me believed, like, don't you know? I've made mistakes. I've been imperfect. I've missed opportunities. I've wasted hours. I've binge, fucked, snorted, smoked, lied, cheated, and manipulated before all of this. Right? That guilt. I sense a lot of codependents, we really deal with this heavy guilt, and it runs so deep. And I, deep down, felt like I deserved this job. It was my unconscious penance for being imperfect and unlovable, which I thought that I was. And I thought that I had to be perfect to be lovable. So there you go. Second, I believe that by bending myself backwards as a good employee, it would make me a good person and good as a being. I was being a good little employee according to my parents. I remember often growing up, both my mom and dad would sit at dinner and complain about this new BS protocol and that grumpy and annoying coworker. And work is so hard. Work, work, work. To be a good person to them, right? I want to fit in. I want to talk at the table. I want to do what's being modeled. And this, right? Non-verbally, passively, indirectly communicated to me these conversations as a child. You need to sacrifice. You need to tolerate. You need to put up with. Right? So to be a good person, to be a good daughter to them, I sense unconsciously, I concluded I needed to be a good employee in a shitty bureaucracy. Right? I was just trying to be that good little girl. And also, this shows that deep down, I didn't think I was good, right? Fundamentally, I believed I was bad if I was working so hard and doing so much to prove that I was the opposite. Number 3, I got to relinquish control of my life. Yes. Right? Despite all the complaining, back pain, weight gain, long hours, unpredictable clients and families, too many meetings, and my chronic to-do list, I got to relinquish control of my life. My life wasn't up to me, and I loved it, right? I got to point fingers at my overbearing boss. I got to blame ignorant social workers for their delay and play the victim to my sad and shitty life. Thank God, since taking full responsibility for my life had never been asked of me, and I'm fucking codependent, so please give me a job where I can be codependent as fuck and not take responsibility for my life. Thank you so much. Please bring all the burden, all the work, right? Like, I don't want to take responsibility for myself. That's scary, intimidating, terrifying. Like, I don't even know if I would exist, because that's not who I am. Number 4, I received your pity, right? I remember my parents consoled me. Oh, you poor baby. I don't know if they said baby. You poor thing. My husband, then fiance at the time, would comfort me like, oh, Marissa, that is so hard. And the relatives, family, friends, and fellow professionals repeatedly told me, they ask so much of you. Wow, Marissa. I remember crying and complaining. Again, my back, it hurts so bad. I hate having to drive out here. I'm stressed the fuck out. Ugh, I have no time to socialize or work out. Ugh, why does life have to be so hard? Why me? And as I'm saying that, I am slightly mocking myself because, it's just like, wow, just like so sad. At times, I think that when I put my hand on my head like a little victim, like reflecting at times growing up, to get pity meant love to me, right? Like, oh, pobrecita, like poor baby. And I was just getting that pity love. I so sought unconsciously. And I like it. I like it like that. Yeah, baby. I like it. Like that. I like your pity. I love your pity. I feel so good to know that you feel so bad for me. Like, just throw me to the wolves and watch me suffer. But at least I have your pity and attention and, like, feeling bad for me while I'm doing it. It's fucked up and really backwards and ironic, but that was another big reason why I allowed myself to stay in that dynamic. 5th, I think around 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, I loved to be needed. Right? I needed to be needed, and this job, my clients and colleagues were very needy. I had a monopoly over social support for some of the adolescents I worked with, right? No one understood them like me. They couldn't call her. Just nobody gets me like you do, Marissa. Like, I know. I had clients. I remember they'd graduate, not by choice, but by force, just because of the way the system works. And the family and we would be crying since we had to let each other go. And I had been prioritizing their needs above my own, right? In an unconscious attempt to fulfill my own. And now you want me to just make it stop? right? Without someone to help, whether it be an alcoholic guy I was dating, a needy friend, or a client at work, I had no self-esteem on my own unless I was needed. I needed to be needed, and this job was very needy. Yeah. Last, why did I allow myself to stay in this dynamic? It gave me something to talk about, right? What the fuck else am I supposed to talk about? Me? You mean share how I'm feeling? What I'm thinking? What I ate yesterday for breakfast? Which was ice cream, by the way? And my hopes and dreams? I don't know, and I don't want to know because that would mean I'd have to actually do something about it. Let's just talk about this crazy shit that happened at work this week. Oh, you too? You want to talk about, let's just talk about superficial things so I don't have to be vulnerable, honest, or seen by you. Cool. I can't tell you how melancholy I am, what keeps me up at night, how an ex slapped me in bed one time and it still haunts me to this day. Let's talk about my clients, boss, and bureaucracy, right? Safe to talk about work. So those, I sense, are 6 of the key reasons why I allowed myself to stay in that dynamic. What comes up for you while listening? If you are a codependent, sacrificial helper at work, why are you allowing yourself to get and stay in that dynamic? How is it serving you, right? And from my examples, I hope you can sense it wasn't serving me intellectually, but emotionally, that job was serving me emotionally, right? Other people, you guys, other people came to that company, worked there for 1, 2, or 3 months, made plenty of observations about that dynamic, that toxic work environment, and they got the fuck out, right? Why did I, what? There's nothing different about us except I stayed for 2.5 years. In preparing for this episode, I recalled how I was even told by a family friend not to work there. We had a call before I started and he was like, it's bad. Don't work there. Right? But deep down, I was like, mister, you don't understand. I deserve to work in bad places. And I sensed that some of my colleagues who also stayed for years, there were people there who'd been there before me and are still there now. I sense that maybe they have similar feelings deep down, right? Why would anyone stay there when there are plenty of jobs that are way healthier? I don't know them, but this is my experience. And I sense some of my employees, some of my fellow colleagues had similar feelings, right? And I wonder if you do too. So, question number 2 from Miss Katie Vernoy. If you could imagine yourself with a diminished capacity, would you still be lovable and have value? Katie said, imagine yourself sick, tired, disabled, sitting on a couch, and not able to provide all this help. Unable, older, all the things that are in your capacity will decrease. If you could imagine yourself with a diminished capacity, would you still be lovable and have value? Marissa, circa June 2016 to March of 2019, would have said, right, if you had given her time to pause, reflect, and turn inwards, she would have said, hell no. Hell no. I do not have value. I am not lovable with a diminished capacity. I actually remember I had one client, a teen. I loved working with him, and I still love him. I love that kid. I can't remember what happened exactly. Maybe, we had some drama. It was a lot. And maybe I reported something to his social worker, and he was upset with me, or I initiated a 5150, which meant I had him hospitalized for his danger to self. I was worried about his safety and that he might hurt or kill himself. There were a couple things that we went through while we worked together. So who knows, but suddenly he stopped talking to me. One day, I was the best therapist in the world, and the next, I was shit. And in therapy, in psychotherapy, we call this, what happened to me, it's called counter-transference, which occurs when the therapist projects their own unresolved conflicts onto the client. He stopped talking to me. I was devastated. Here I was, codependent dummy, with this client, putting his needs first in order to fulfill my own. I was a sacrificial helper, so identified as his helper. And then when he pulled the rug out from under me and there was no one to help, he stopped meeting, he ignored my attempts to schedule a session. I hesitate to say it, but it was like a breakup. I was not able to provide all the help and felt so unlovable, worthless. I cried, I regretted, I questioned myself. And this was with this client, other clients, families, and staff. This happened multiple times where I would be helping. Something would happen where it would be rejected, cut off, dismissed, right? Unable. And I just, deep down, I believed I had no value and was unlovable with a diminished capacity, right? I had to put out so much in order to feel filled up, right? Again, don't you know, Katie? Don't you know who I am and how lovable and worthless I am? Lying on a couch, I have to sit with that pain and emptiness I felt deep down while I was hurrying around and helping everyone else. And this is just pervasive. It happened with exes, at work, friendships, everywhere. Katie adds, just being there, sitting there. We are valuable. And I think we don't get that message from society if we aren't pretty, thin, perfectly able, helping, sacrificing. If you are having to constantly empathize or understand another, when that person you serve is way more important, then you and everything should be aligned with what they need. If you haven't developed who you are spending your whole time being someone else who can serve. And that's 100% true. I didn't know who I was. My best guess was helper. And when that was taken away from me, like, I was terrified. And I did everything I could to get back into the helping position, right? I was afraid of who I would find if I laid on that couch, right? If I stopped helping, I likely would just get in touch with the insecure, incompetent, stupid, desperate, thirsty, lonely, sad girl that I was. What comes up for you, dear listener, in this response? And are you lovable? Do you have value with a diminished capacity? All right, third question from Katie. She asked, who are you? And what are you putting out into the world? She said, it's truly knowing who you are separate from other people. If it's just you and no one is asking anything from you, you don't have a role or can't take care of anyone, who are you and what are you putting out into the world? Marissa, circa June 2016 to March 2019, would have said, I am a piece of shit. You just don't know it. I work twice as hard to be half as worthy, and if you really, really knew me, you'd see through all this helping and see that I'm a lazy, dishonest, selfish girl. At the time, what did I put out into the world? Anxiety, judgment, gossip, and like a sense of disempowerment into the world. Right? Like I was really disempowered in my job. The families and clients I worked with were very disempowered with the system. And it was just very like, c'est la vie, like that's life. Like we got to deal with it. We have to deal with these bureaucracies and things falling through and abandonment and hurt and heartbreak and like I was putting out into the world this sense that if I could choose between freedom or prison, I would choose prison. Like I'd rather have problems than solve problems. That is what I was putting out to the world back for the 2.5 years I was working there. Ugh. What comes up for you? Who are you? Who are you, dear listener, and what are you putting out into the world? Right? What is this sacrificial helping? What is this codependency way of life? What is it doing to who you are and your energy and output, vibe? All right, fourth question. Some context, Katie and I talked about how being needed is intoxicating, right? I'm like, love being needed. And I asked what we are to do if we want to get sober. And Katie's question, if I had no responsibilities, who I am as an individual, if no one is relying on me in any way, no strong push, what would I be doing? And then she said, take a breath, say it again, since there are so many pressures that we internalize, right? So take a breath, get to a very blank slate. What brings me joy? What are my areas of genius? What fills me up and doesn't drain me? Marissa, back when I was at this job, she would have said, what would I be doing? Take a breath and say it again. What would I be doing? I would be learning Spanish. I would be taking my dog, Bella, for a walk every single day for at least 30 minutes a day, since she gained weight while I was working at that job because I wasn't walking her every day. I would be cooking delicious and nutritious meals from Pinterest for my then fiance and parents. I would work as a barista since I loved it in college. Probably would be making the same money, and I would brighten people's days while I took time once a week to look for a great job nearby. I would keep my 2001 Toyota Camry running way longer since I wouldn't be driving 200 plus miles a day. And I would attend chiropractic appointments, stretch daily, heal my lower back, right? Because it was hurting very, very soon into that job. Right? Katie, she said, what would you be doing? Ask it again. I was like, right, that Marissa, sacrificial helper, she would take time to reflect, get honest, and admit how poorly she still felt about herself despite being in therapy and support groups for the past 5 years. And she would have sought more therapy and books and resources to promote her healing. She would visit her then fiance more in Orange County and put thought into their time together rather than what I was doing, which is canceling and relinquishing plans to him. Right? What would I be doing? And back then, I'd meet with other therapists for coffee to ask about their paths and pay attention to what resonates most with me as I start my career. I'd visit my twin and older sister more often. I'd talk with and visit my friends more. I'd realize how precious my time is and acknowledge that despite how poorly I feel about myself, I don't have to work this hard to do this much to be good. Right? Katie said, what brings you joy? Spanish, my dog, family, fiance, baristaing, working on myself, reading. That brings me joy. And yeah, my areas of genius back 2016 to 2019. It was hard. It's hard for me to even come up with it because if someone had asked me then, which this whole exercise is me pretending, but first I've been like, well, I'm a piece of shit, so I don't have any areas of genius. But if I had to really reflect, I sense I would have said teaching and mentoring, bringing people together, more coffees, lunches, family gatherings. An area of genius was I was a good dog mom, a good dog sitter, and a good house sitter. Could have pursued that. And another area of genius was organizing and executing tasks. It's just that I was doing that at my job as opposed to not doing it for myself. And Katie's last question, what fills me up? When I was at that job, I would have said coffee and conversation. So for you, right, reflecting, what brings you joy? What are your areas of genius? What fills you up? And if you had no responsibilities, what would you be doing? All right, fifth question. Katie asked, who would you be if you were not afraid? Marissa, circa June 2016 to March 2019, right? If she was sitting with Katie and Katie had said, Marissa, who would you be if you were not afraid? She would have honestly said, I would be an ex-employee from this job. I would be remembered poorly by my clients, their families, social workers, and my colleagues as the girl who, quote, couldn't hack it, end quote. I put a lot of pressure on myself to not be part of the broken system, but it was to my detriment, right? Like, it should not have been a weight I put on my shoulders, but rather the fault of the system itself. And who would I be if I were not afraid? I would have just said, like, can't save you, kid. Sorry. And I would accept that I would be a disappointment to them, right? If I were not afraid, I was just like, fuck it. I'm going to disappoint people. I'm going to be the girl who couldn't hack it. I'm going to be an ex-employee because I can't sustain this job. Now I hear the gardener. Oh, goodness. Okay, we're almost done. Right? Who would you be if you were not afraid? I would be unemployed for a bit. And I would be a privileged middle-class Latinx daughter of parents who let me live at home, not work, and figure out what I wanted to do next without worrying what other people thought. Who would I be if I were not afraid? I would be present and vulnerable with myself and others. I'd stop playing small and start taking up some goddamn space. I'd play big since I actually had all the space. I was just too chicken shit and afraid to see it. Right? Who would you be if you were not afraid? And that's, yeah, if I'd gotten really honest, I would have been an ex-employee way sooner. Okay, last question from Katie. She said, we need to pause, think, and get clear. If and when we are wanting to self-sacrifice or be a helper at work or anywhere, we need to ask, is this toxic? Is this what I want or what others want from me? And then we need to build up resilience to set some limits. She said, worst case, you decide to stop. But if you set limits, remind yourself what's at stake, you may be able to sustain them. So back when I was at that job, June 2016 to March of 2019, day one, remember day one, I drove 40 miles east from my office to a city, county, and client I should not have been working with, right? Thanks to the week-long training I just finished, I like, these are not checking off any of the boxes from what I just learned. I would have asked myself, is this toxic? Yes. Is this what I want or what others want from me? It's what others want. What would be my limit? You know what? I'm only going to drive in my county. Or, fuck it, my therapist told me I need to decide ASAP, and I would have decided after hearing this place is bad. Hearing that the two therapists before me had quit in rapid succession. And, having to drive so far, my limit would have been, no, I will not work here. What was at stake? My body, my time, and my relationships. So, dear listener, I want you to take that with you this week, month, year. This question, is this toxic? Is this what I want or what others want from me? Set a limit and remind yourself what is at stake. And it's you, baby girl, and your sanity, and your relationships, and your time, and your body, and your sexuality, and your pride, and your sleep, and your house, etc. That's a wrap. Sacrificial Helping Syndrome Part 3. Part 1 is Katie's interview. Part 2 is me sharing about ways I actually self-sacrificed and was codependent AF at work. And now today, we have me getting real honest. And yeah, by the end, I already told you guys, but I was not present. I let things fall through the cracks. I let shit slide. I made choices and did things I am not proud of because I was burnt out. Codependent AF. Just sacrificed beyond repair. So I hope that helps. Reminder, Katie has a special offer for $150 off a package where you can sit and meet with her, especially if you are seeking guidance in leadership at work, and walk through all these questions and then some. I'll be sure to put that in the show notes today. And reminder, this is how you can use the episode. Listen, take the questions, write out your answers, start to create change where it's needed with help from me. Don't be a codependent dummy and work at a job like I did for 2.5 years when I really should have been there for 2.5 days or 2.5 hours, right? I remember too, my dad, he was like, you really love those kids. It's like, yeah. And also, it wasn't loving to myself to be there. And it's not loving for you either. So thank you for listening. This is Marissa, your adoring host, adoring to you. I adore you. Remember, if you are feeling unseen, I see you. If you are feeling unheard, I hear you. And if you think that you don't matter, know that you matter to me. Until next time, I want you to get out there so you can stop playing small and start taking up space. I'll see you next time. Oh, hello again. So I wrote and recorded the episode, and then I had a couple thoughts. So popping in to make a note. Can't upload without letting you guys just an added detail. So reflecting on the questions from Katie's episode, I want to highlight that Katie was ejected from that job where she was being and suffering from Sacrificial Helping Syndrome. I eventually left my job in March of 2019 thanks to attending therapy, support groups for codependency, because I started to recognize how codependent I was, especially at work, reading, attending conferences for therapists, and seeing my options start to open outside of this job. And that through a culmination of all those things and self-care and the back pain and the drive and becoming more and more aware of the toxicity, I was finally able to leave in March of 2019. And I am not a sacrificial helper anymore because I work for myself. So it's not chronic, it is not permanent, right? Katie was ejected and has stayed out. I left and haven't gone back, and I've created my own job, office, work culture that obviously works for me. And so if you are in an environment where you are a sacrificial helper, you have options. It may not seem like it may not feel like it, but you do. So I just wanted to add that, like Katie and I got out and we have stayed out. And I hope you get out too. And I was reflecting, I'm going to add this poem by Marianne Williamson. And I hope you listen to it and take it with you throughout the week. It's called Our Deepest Fear. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are we not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So take that with you this week, and I will see you guys soon. Marissa, signing off.
You're still here? Just kidding. Girl, this is not therapy, and I'm not your therapist, okay? This podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regards to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the publisher, or the guests are rendering any legal, clinical, or other professional information. If you want or need a professional, you should find one.